How's it going, everybody? Bryan, Alvarez, and Dave Meltzer here. Wrestling Observer Radio, December 12, 2021. Figure4online.com/WrestlingObserver.com. We got a lot of news to get into today. We had a UFC pay-per-view, the Ring of Honor Final Battle. I watched the Ring of Honor show. Dave watched the UFC show. So, Dave, let's get the UFC recap here.
Okay. It was a great show. Obviously, the biggest news is Juliana Pena beat Amanda Nunes in a huge upset to win the bantamweight title. It was one of the three biggest title match upsets in UFC history, and one of the biggest upsets in UFC history. You could argue the biggest of those three upsets. The big three would be, I think, from an odds perspective, Holly Holm was 11-1 underdog, and there were places that had Nunes up 10-1. George St. Pierre and Matt Serra was about 8 or 9-1. So in theory, the Holm Rousey is the biggest upset, but you could certainly argue I don't know. I mean, Matt Serra, George St. Pierre was a pretty damn big upset, in probably because George. But I would say that this may have been really, when it comes to full skill level and everything, like the biggest upset of those three. But it's the basic gist was that Amanda, it's like Juliana Pena didn't look that great. Everyone's like talking about she did this and she did that, but Amanda Nunes just absolutely was done in the second round. So I got to think that the COVID that she had, hurt her lungs. I don't see any other thing around that. She was done after round one. She got hit, but once she got hit and she started swinging back, you could just see that it's like she was swinging. They were both swinging wildly, and they were both hitting each other. It was a surprise because Pena was landing so much, but not really, because you could just see Nunes was just done. And then Pena took her down, and she didn't even get the hooks in or anything. She just started a choke, and, Nunes tapped out. It was, and once she got tired, she just I don't want to say she panicked, but you could just see it in her face. It's just like, I'm done. What happened? Because, that's what happened. And then she was just swinging wildly looking for a knockout, and once you do that, Pena was not any better skilled as far as the punching went, but she landed more because she was not nearly as tired. Nunes just completely outmuscled her and totally dominated round one. But, when you're done, you're done, and she was done. And then Charles Oliveira and Dustin Poirier in the lightweight title fight was an excellent fight. The first round was incredible, back and forth. Poirier dropped him. Let me just check my notes here. But Poirier dropped him a couple times, I believe. Let me just get to this thing here. Poirier won the first round, and then hold on, where do we got this? So Poirier hurt him with a punch, knocked him down. Fans were chanting USA. Poirier landed a lot of big punches. And then Oliveira landed a right knee and an elbow. Poirier knocked him down with a left, so the second knockdown of the round. He was landing big lefts. He landed a lot of clean shots. Realistically, most fighters would have not survived that first round. Poirier was landing solid shots, and the guy had power. Oliveira was landing back. It wasn't like he was just taking. He was landing back, but he didn't have the power, and it didn't look good for him at this point. But he was in there with the knees, he was landing some stuff. In the second round, Oliveira started landing knees and worked for a takedown. He nearly got the takedown. Oliveira ended up on top, and actually by pulling Poirier's glove, which is illegal, And while he was on top, Poirier just decided that he was just going to hold him in full guard, triangle guard, and just weather the storm. I think his mentality was that on the ground, I think he was very afraid of submissions, which was, obviously going to be, everyone should be afraid of submissions against Oliveira. He's got more submissions than anyone in the history of UFC. So Oliveira's on top, and he couldn't really get a submission because that's all the guy was doing, was basically trying to avoid that. So Oliveira was landing a lot of elbows to the head, clearly winning round 2. Honestly, it should have been a 10-8. I'm sure none of the judges gave it a 10-8 because it's Nevada, and just the fact that the judges are using the old system rather than the actual current system anyway. But Oliveira, controlled the entire round. Once he was on top, Poirier did nothing but basically try to ride out the round without getting subbed. In the third round, Oliveira jumped on his back, got the choke, and that was it. 1 minute and 2 seconds in round number 3, and Oliveira retained the title. Poirier had him down twice. It was a fantastic performance by Oliveira coming back from those 2 knockdowns. And so he is the rightful world champion now. And Justin Gaethje will be his next opponent. There's a lot of talk about Poirier against McGregor again. And at this point, since Poirier's not the champion, there's really no reason not to make that fight, even though, Poirier would probably win again and McGregor's likely shot. But, the fight did, the 2 fights did 2 of the biggest buy rates. And McGregor's, trying to claim that he was winning the second fight, or actually it's the third fight, because McGregor actually beat Poirier years ago when both were featherweights. But in the last fight, McGregor, he was claiming he was winning the fight, which he was not until his leg broke. But his leg did break. And, at that point, what are you going to do? I thought that, Poirier was going to finish him pretty easily. But, you do never know. One round doesn't tell you a lot. As far as Pena goes, I've got to believe that they will go with Pena and Nunes in a rematch, just because Nunes has been champion for so long, greatest women fighter of all time. And, but if it, you just don't know the long-term damage, because, again, it's like they said she had a good camp, but you're always going to say that. But, she was, there were problems earlier in Nunes' career where she was known as like the best one-round women's fighter in the world. But if you got past that one round, she was very vulnerable. And that for years, people thought, that was the strategy to beat her. And I think that there were 5-round fights where she got tired at the end, but then there were 5-round fights where she didn't get tired, and that's for the last several years. It didn't turn out that way. So she had licked the problem through her training, and now all of a sudden that problem was back in and even worse than before. Before it was more like, she could be taken over, but this is so many years ago. But this was just like, she was just done and just swinging wildly. It was really, it was unbelievable to watch. In some ways it felt like watching Ronda Rousey and Holly Holm, in the sense of it was almost like disbelief. But with Ronda Rousey and Holly Holm, there was always the thing of, when it was going on and you really saw it, you kind of saw what was going, it was one of those things where you kind of recognized that Holly Holm had spent years training for Ronda Rousey perfectly. They had this game plan, and Ronda Rousey had not spent years training for Holly Holm. And once they got it to where, she was able to remain upright, she was the better boxer and she was going to beat her in boxing. That was an inevitability. Pena was not the better anything than Nunes. But, and in the first round, it was very clear. Pena had nothing for her in the first round. But once you get tired, it doesn't matter. You just, at that point, the fight just switched and was what it was. And Pena won the title. And Pena is, man, I mean, it's like gone from like a champion at 135 that nobody thought could get beat to a champion where every fighter there is going like, man, get me the next shot because she probably won't last that long. But it did, again, like with Nunes, did it expose her? I mean, we don't know until months down the line. If she comes back and she still has the same problem, then, I mean, if she can't go past a round and a half or a round, there's a lot of people who can beat her now, if that's the case. Because on this night, there are, I mean, Valentina Shevchenko would have beaten her easily on this night just by getting past the first round, which she would have gotten past. A lot of people would have gotten past the first round of Nunes on this night and then beaten her because of that. But Pena was the one in there, and more power to her, legitimate world champion. First woman who has ever given birth to win a world championship in a major organization, I believe, but certainly in UFC. She noted that Amanda Nunes is a mother, but it was her partner, Nina, who gave birth, whereas Pena did give birth, did come back. And, there's a lot of women who've given birth and come back, but none who've ever won the championship. So, more power to her. Surprise champion for sure. And, I would presume, again, if Nunes has the same problem, she's going to take her out in one round. And perhaps she could, but perhaps she can't. If Nunes can be the old Nunes of a year ago, Pena really doesn't stand a chance in a rematch. But we don't know short-term, long-term, what the problem was. So that's the situation. And then, it opens it up. I'm sure it opens it up to a lot of people because Pena is very beatable. So, that was that. So, overall, I mean, pretty much every fight was great. I mean, for the most part, or good. As far as like on the TV, the basketball game went long. So the first fight, which was Bruno Silva's win, was not on television. We just saw the knockout. He looked really good. 3 straight knockouts in his first 3 UFC fights. So a good start for him. Then Tai Tuivasa and Augusto Sakai was largely what you would expect. They're 2 big guys in the 260 range, slugging it out. Tuivasa's got a lot of charisma, very, very popular. He won the first round, I thought. Both landed some good punches. Sakai got some knees to the body, but Tuivasa had the best punches in round 1. Second round, 29 seconds. Tuivasa just unloaded with big punches, took him out. And then, of course, did the shoey, which is drinking beer. Somebody threw a shoe into the cage, and I don't know, a beer magically ended up in Tuivasa's hand, pours the beer in the shoe, drank as he was going to the back. A fan gave him his shoe and a beer. He drank it out of a fan shoe. Man, it's one thing if it's like your coach's shoe or your shoe.
Doesn't seem right.
Man, I don't know. I mean, he's done that before, but I would not do that like so quickly, but he did. And Tuivasa had been living here until the pandemic because he was training with at AKA, and evidently he's like a wild man anyway. And Daniel Cormier was just going like, "Oh my God, it's going to be crazy on the strip tonight with Tuivasa coming off of a win." So that was the deal. But it was the fight that it was booked to be, is what I would say. Dominic Cruz, Pedro Munoz, great fight. Dominic Cruz is not, it's like he's the same style fighter he's always been, the same intelligent fighter he's always been. He is a step slower because he's older. So in his old, the thing that with him was that he was always very difficult to hit because he just moved, and he never moved the same way twice. So it was very, very hard to time him. And then, he's had a lot of injuries. And you just get older. And at 135, I mean, it's hard at that weight class, at the lighter weight classes when you're in your 30s, because it's a speed division. It's not a power division like the bigger guys where you can be effective much older. And in his case, it's even more because, it's like if you're like, a good striker or, an orthodox fighter or whatever, you could do, but Cruz's style is so dependent on being so quick. So anyway, in the first round, Munoz first threw this like scary head kick, which grazed Dominic's hair probably, but did not hit his head. But it was one of those things where you looked at it and go like, ooh, it's like Munoz has certainly a chance here. Munoz put him down twice. The first time was with the jab. The second time was with a left hook. Now, if you watch that clip of that left hook, I mean, it landed flush, and his lights went out for a split second as he was standing, and went down again. So 2 knockdowns. He recovered very quickly, and actually at the end of the round, Cruz was landing a lot of big punches. So the basic story of the fight was that after in rounds 2 and 3, is that Cruz would do the Dominic Cruz style. It was the same Dominic Cruz fight that if you watched years ago Dominic Cruz fights, it was what it was. He would be in and out, landing all kinds of punches, looking fantastic. The difference is that before he would never get hit. He was so difficult to hit. Whereas here, Munoz did rock him a couple of times, but after round 1, never hurt him. He hurt him bad in round 1, nearly finished him. In the other times, when Cruz would get out, Munoz would land the punch at times, but I would never say hurt him significantly. It was just what it was. And but round 2, Cruz looked great. Round 3, the same story. Cruz was landing all kinds of punches. Occasionally did get hit on counters. But he looked great. Overall, great. This was a great fight. There was talk of Cruz against Aldo. Jose Aldo won last week. Kind of I think that feels like the right fight to make, actually. Aldo... It's hard to say what would happen in that fight. If Cruz avoids getting clocked, I think that he can beat most people. I just don't see Peter Yan being one of those people, but he's so hard to hit. Munoz is not like, Munoz is a very good fighter. It's not like that Cruz did this to some guy who's not that good, and like against top guys, this thing wouldn't work. If he can avoid getting hit, he was champion for a long time and he can beat anyone. So good performance there. Dan Ige and Josh Emmett, also a great fight. Josh Emmett came out, dropped him with a punch right away and was pounding on him. Again, I won't say like close to stoppage, but it was close. And then Ige came back. And, Emmett clearly won round 1. I had Ige winning round 2 very clearly. And round 3 was one of those rounds where, man, it was close. I did have Emmett winning. He landed a real big punch early, some big shots early in the round. Ige came back with a big right that hurt Emmett. It was like one of those rounds where you're watching it and just going like, man, somebody do something in the last 30 seconds to win this round because it is so close. And I can't say anyone did, but I would say Emmett eked out the round. The judges agreed. It was 229-28 and 130-27. The 30-27 judge, look, Ige clearly won round 2. It was just that was a bad card. If Ige won the fight, it would absolutely not have been a robbery. But I did have Emmett. I don't know. I didn't check on as far as like what other media members had. I saw some stuff of people who I know and some friends of mine who did think that Emmett won. But we all said like it's It was really close. Sugar Sean O'Malley against Howlin' Paiva. O'Malley looked great. Paiva's not a bad fighter, and O'Malley made him look like he was a job guy. O'Malley was just landing jabs, dropped him with a right, dropped him a second time, and then it was stopped at 4 minutes and 42 seconds. Cody Garbrandt, Kai Kara France, and Cody was so much bigger than Kai Kara France, and France dropped him twice. Cody took him down, but France got back up, and there was a 4-punch combo, overhand right, uppercut, and Kai France put Cody Garbrandt away. That's 3 knockdowns. It's 3 minutes and 21 seconds. He got knocked down 3 times in 3 minutes, Garbrandt. The reality is that he does not take a punch well. I think one of the reasons he moved from 135 to 125, he said this, was because they don't hit as hard. But when you're dropping weight, the guy is the same size as you. Although Cody was bigger, but he was smaller than usual. So when you're like that, you don't have to be hit as hard when you're smaller than you used to be for it to matter. And Garbrandt's problem for years, Cody Garbrandt's got great hands. His problem is that if you hit him, you can put him out, and guys do that. And here, it's like every time he got hit solidly, he went down. It almost reminded me of watching Josh Koscheck at the end when his chin was gone. It's like, that's the basic gist there. They were certainly talking that the winner of this fight could face the winner of Brandon Moreno and Davison Figueiredo, which is coming up in next pay-per-view, January 22nd. France, it's a good win. Perhaps. And then they announced Robert Whittaker and Israel Adesanya for the middleweight title February 12th in Houston, Texas. They're going back to the Toyota Center. And then Santiago Ponzinibbio and Jeff Neal. And Neal won 29-28. I had Neal winning round 1. Ponzinibbio came back, strong second round, and then in the third round, Neal got the better of him. He kept landing, and Ponzinibbio, at one point in round 3, looked like he had a shot at winning the decision, but Neal won, I would say, at the end of the round. So that was the story of the show, but a very eventful show. I don't think that a lot of people took Oliveira seriously as the best guy in the division because Poirier was the guy. He just didn't go for the title. And they made Oliveira and Chandler the championship fight. And Oliveira, was dropped and in trouble with Chandler. Oliveira was in trouble here. So he is, again, almost finished. He's beatable, but he can beat anyone, which actually is great for championship fights. As far as it's not like a one-sided thing where you go in there and, you think that a top guy can hit him, but he can finish anyone. The one thing that's sort of why I mildly favored Oliveira was I just thought in 5 rounds, he could be knocked out, although he hasn't been in years, but he could be. And he can be hit because he's been hit and hurt before. But somehow, you know that the one thing about Oliveira is that he can get the submission. He's one of the best submission guys they've ever had, and he can get the submission at any time over 5 rounds, and that's what happened here. That was the story of the show.
Well, we had a very eventful ROH Final Battle as well. The final pay-per-view before they shut down and do whatever restructuring they're going to do leading into the WrestleMania weekend. Did you see any of this show?
No, none of it.
I missed the opener of all matches, which was Dragon Lee and Ray Horus.
Oh, geez. That was like the match I was most looking forward to.
Well, I saw the rest of the show. We had the ROH television title. Rhett Titus beat Dalton Castle, Silas Young, and Joe Hendry to win the title. So Rhett Titus leaves as the Ring of Honor television champion. And good match. Lots of big spots. Four-way. Crowd. We had a crowd here for the show.
It was. They did like 1,600 people. I mean, it was.
Yeah, it felt like a big crowd.
Yeah, I mean, they had a nice crowd. Again, Final Battle and everything. It wasn't close to full because I think the building holds 5. But Ring of Honor has had trouble drawing in the last, since the pandemic, and even before the pandemic, they had a real bad year going in. So yeah.
We had a ref bump, and then we had Hendry hitting Castle with the title belt. But then Dak Draper, who was doing commentary, ran down to the ring. He took out Hendry, and finally Titus avoided a springboard splash and hit his drop kick and won the championship. So this was a good match. Throughout the show, Tony Khan had noted that he was going to help out Ring of Honor. He obviously gave him Jay Lethal for the main event after Bandito had to pull out due to a positive COVID test. But throughout the show, I mean, we had all sorts of Ring of Honor former alumni. We had CM Punk on the show talking about Ring of Honor. We had Bryan Danielson. We had Adam Cole, Hangman Page. So he gave all of his biggest stars. I mean, this was all, I think, pre-taped at Dynamite. But I mean, they all gave comments about what Ring of Honor had meant to them in their careers. I wonder if that means that Khan is. There's some business. Well, there's clearly business because after the Briscoes match, which we're going to get into, they challenged anybody, and FTR accepted. And they did the pull-apart brawl and all of the officials coming down to break it up. So looks like we're going to get Briscoes versus FTR.
And that would almost surely be in AEW.
Yes.
So, it also, maybe Khan, I don't know. It's perhaps that Khan would, I don't know if he would help the Ring of Honor when they come back, but maybe it's just that, the Briscoes are probably not, going to WWE anyway. So it may be that he's going to pick up a lot of these guys, which I expected he'd pick up some of these guys. And the Briscoes, I don't know. It's like they don't need another tag team, but the Briscoes are great, so it's a good addition. And yeah, Briscoes FTR, it's like that's one of the FTR's wanted to face the Briscoes. They've been wanting that for years. But yeah, maybe it's one of those things where they do have that tape library. I know originally they said it wasn't for sale, but there's maybe Tony just decided to be nice and spice up their show and think that it would be good for his company because people will.
There's
talk about
no way
company.
You could watch this show and not think there's an FTR Briscoes match coming.
Oh no! I'm sure there is, and I'm sure it's going to be in AEW too. But there's probably more.
Sure.
As far as like who else from the promotion will end up in AEW, I don't know, but there's plenty of quality people. Freaking Dragon Lee is like, he's one of the top guys, and Brody King, Bandito. There's some real talent. There's a lot of real talent in this company.
We had Josh Woods beating Bryan Johnson to retain the ROH Pure title, and they went 13 minutes, and it was a pretty good match. Basically, Bryan Johnson ran out of rope breaks very early, and then near the end, he tried to use the belt, and then he used a brass knucks for a close near fall. And then finally they were up on the top rope, and Woods put him in a sleeper, and Johnson passed out, so Josh Woods retains the title. We also had Jimmy Jacobs doing a promo talking about the history of Ring of Honor. We had Shane Taylor beating Kenny King in a fight without honor. If you love yourself a fight without honor, this was a match for you. They had all sorts of gimmicks. They had ladders. They had ladder bridges. They did the package pile driver through a ladder bridge outside, which looked like it was just brutal. And chair spots and everything like that. Package pile driver, as I noted, through the ladder, threw him in the ring. Kenny King kicked out. And finally, Taylor hit his package pile driver onto a chair for the pin. And so this was a good match. Good match. Lots of gimmicks. CM Punk video is noted. And then we had Roxy beating Willow, which was a little bit sloppy early, but it turned into a good match. And Willow, it was basically the David versus Goliath match. Roxy sold and then made the big comeback and finally hit the Code Red, the Code Rock, and got the pin to retain the title. And then Deonna Purrazzo came out with the AAA Reina de Reinas title, and she said that she was going to beat Mickie James for the Knockouts title at the next pay-per-view, and afterwards she was going to challenge Roxy to a winner-takes-all match. And they shook hands. So it looks like someone is leaving with all of the belts. I don't know what that means for the future of the Ring of Honor Women's title.
That would mean that perhaps Roxy is going to be with Impact.
Yep. Adam Cole promo, and then we had Violence Unlimited, Brody King, Homicide, Tony Deppen, and Rocky Romero versus EC3 and the Foundation. 13 minutes. A lot of cool spots in this match because basically this was the tribute to the old Ring of Honor. Everybody was doing everybody's spots from the past, including, I think it was Deppen. Somebody did all of the old Generico spots, including the top rope brainbuster. It was Isom, actually, that did it. Isom hit the top rope brainbuster, the Luva kick, and then Homicide hit him with the cop kill. He kicked out of that, and finally Brody King tagged in and hit the giant Gonzo bomb on Isom, and he got the win. So afterwards, EC3's doing this promo, and he's talking about how, we've been fired. These executives have all the money. We don't have a job. You got to start looking out for yourselves. And he's trying to convince some people to join him. And who should come out but Wesley Blake, some other dude who I did not recognize, and of all people, the Titan Adam Scherr, the former Braun Strowman. And so he came out, and they ran off Isom, Johnson, and Draper. And so it's EC3, the former Braun Strowman, the former Wesley Blake, and whoever the other guy is. I didn't recognize him. But they're the new crew.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's just interesting because
it suggests to me that they're all going to Impact, because I think EC3 is probably Impact bound, and Adam Scherr probably would be going with him there, because that's my presumption. I don't know.
I don't know either. They could go to AEW. It's not like they could. The thing that I thought, as far as with the Titan Adam Scherr is that unless if he's going to Impact and it's an angle to get to Impact or AEW for that matter, then this all makes sense. But and if he came in because EC3 asked him for a favor, then that's fine too. But if he came in at anywhere near his asking price, it's just kind of weird. Someone like him. Like, it's one thing you do a surprise because you're building for, the next month's card, but to pay someone a lot of money to do a surprise on a lame duck last show of the promotion when you don't advertise them, when someone like that might sell some tickets, that's that's getting way too deep into the stupidity. But, I mean, we'll have to see what, if he, like I said, if he came for a low price for future business for another company that he is going to, that makes sense. If he came because they paid him a shitload of money to have a big surprise on their last pay-per-view, and they didn't advertise him, that's like, I mean, that's boggles my mind stupidity, because there's like no upside to that whatsoever.
We had the Briscoes beating Matt Taven and Mike Bennett to win the ROH World Tag Team titles. I think this is their 12th championship reign in Ring of Honor. And excellent match. Briscoes are awesome. And, Taven and Mike Bennett did a great job as well. All sorts of big near falls back and forth at the end. Doomsday Device on the floor. Another Doomsday Device by OGK. And finally, at the end, Briscoes hit a Doomsday Device. Jay hit the Jay Driller and Froggy Elbow for the pin. Briscoes win the titles. And as noted, Jay cut the promo afterwards saying it might be the end of the era. It's not the end of the Briscoes. And any tag team in the world is welcome to come out and challenge them. The lights go out. They come back on. There is FTR. They have this huge brawl. They're fighting. The people are breaking them up. They're flipping each other off. They're screaming at each other. So that's coming. It should be awesome. Then the main event was Jonathan Gresham, Jay Lethal for the ROH World title. And it's Jonathan Gresham and Jay Lethal, so the match was great. And about 10 minutes into the match, the locker room emptied. And everybody came down. They surrounded the ring. They're pounding on the ring apron. Gresham's hitting all of these near falls, but then he gets cut off. Jay Lethal hits him with the lethal injection. Gresham counters into a backslide and then puts him in the octopus, and Jay Lethal taps out. So Jonathan Gresham is the new Ring of Honor champion. Jordan Grace, his wife, got in the ring, celebrated with him. Everybody jumps in there as the show goes off the air. It was a very good show. The crowd helped a ton. If you've been watching the Ring of Honor television in the empty arenas, I mean, this was a huge improvement with fans into the product. And it's the end for the time being. So hopefully they can restructure in a way to continue on. But I guess we'll see. Mm-hmm. Like the show. Mm-hmm. Particularly the debut of Hook.
That was really good.
Holy smokes, what a talent.
Yeah, he could be a superstar.
I mean, he is a superstar.
Yeah, he could be a superstar. Yeah, really, really look good. I was told, like months ago that he was ready. So, I mean, they saved it for Long Island, where he was going to get a good response, nice entrance, nice song. Everything he did was crisp, a lot of judo stuff, and used his father's submission. And he it's a good show. I thought that the Rampage show was real good. I mean, FTR and Penta and Phoenix was another great match. Like in their series. The only one that wasn't good was the ladder match in AAA. All the other matches have been great, and holy smokes, Phoenix was just incredible as usual, but even more so than usual, I would say. He was just great, and cleaner finish than I expected, but that's good. Babyfaces went over with the combination package pile driver and double foot stomp, and then Ray Phoenix did his flip, tope. He did the finish on Dax, the flip on Cash, I believe. I've been the other way around, actually. But but what a really, really strong match, and fans were into it and everything. Adam Cole and Wheeler Yuta was exactly what you would expect. The only negative I would say is that I thought that having Sting and Orange Cassidy both go down to identical low blows within like a few minutes. I saw one too many low blows. It's like we already saw. It's like you see something and then you do like the one thing with the AEW angles, is that they're very similar. It's almost always heels beat down baby faces. That's like their trope. Heels beat down baby faces. And that's fine, I mean, as a general rule, that is what your angles are going to be, but they do too many of them. And then in this case, it was like low blow, heels beat down baby faces. But it looks very much like Sting and Darby Allin against FTR in Greensboro, where they're going to push, where Sting had his first big match was Greensboro. First big match on national television in Greensboro. I mean, he had big matches before that, but never on national television. The Ric Flair match in 1988. And so, yeah, that. And then the end of the show, with the heel beat down, was, so it's what, Adam Cole, Young Bucks, and Bobby Fish. And on the other side, Orange Cassidy, Trent Beretta, Chuck Taylor, and Wheeler Yuta. So I could see that. I could see that being added to the Dallas show this week. But if not, it could be on Rampage next week. I mean, it's coming though. A match, either that exact match or something very similar to the match is obviously coming very soon.
Well, it was interesting because the heels hit Trent with the triple BTE trigger.
Right.
Excalibur made it very clear that was his surgically repaired neck. So when I watched it, I thought, there's a chance this guy's going to be off TV a little bit longer. Maybe he's not 100% yet, but they wanted him to do that deal on Dynamite, and this was a way to give him a little more time to heal up. I could be completely out of my mind, but there's just something about this spot and the way that Excalibur called it that made it seem like this might be like an injury, a short-term injury angle to give him a little more time.
Could be. Also could be him setting up his first match back.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, but eventually, I mean, obviously, he should be going against. I mean, it wasn't just like the Young Bucks or just Adam Cole. It's all three of them. So what he's coming back for. And then Bobby Fish being there. There's a reason Bobby Fish was there. So it in some form it looks like there's a 4-on-4, and they played the Roppongi Vice theme at the end. When Trent was there, because Trent and Rocky Romero were Roppongi Vice in Japan for years.
So then the Smackdown show, the star of this show was Brock Lesnar once again. This guy's his promo in the opening segment was Sami Zayn and Paul Heyman. I mean, it wasn't like a great promo, but he's Brock. He's just got so much, Brock Lesnar charisma. But the promo that he did with Adam Pearce in the back was telling about this moose that he killed and skinned and cut all the guts out of it, and he named it Pierce. I thought he was awesome in that segment. And Adam Pearce was great reacting to him. But no Roman Reigns on the show, which I guess
and they made that clear from the start. Then again, maybe they said that at the start of the show to make people think he would be there when he's not. Who knows? But they did absolutely at the start of the show say he wasn't there, and there was a groan in the crowd because all those people. I mean, he is the most pushed guy, and they had a real big crowd, and it's like it's the biggest SmackDown crowd in 2 months, maybe a couple months.
Well, he claimed he was training in Samoa for his match, but they did say he was going to be there again next week, so I guess he'll be there next week. But Randy Orton and Riddle worked on this show. They did the show-long storyline where they said that tonight we're going to find out who the best tag team in WWE is. It'll be the New Day versus the Usos versus Randy Orton and Riddle. And they build this up the whole show. We're going to find out who the best team in WWE is. We're going to find out who the best team in WWE is. We're going to find out who the best... So finally they do the match, which, by the way, this was another one of those segments where it took 45 minutes to do a 18-minute match with entrance and everything. But the Usos, the New Day won. Mm-hmm. And then they win, and the announcers go, "The New Day, the best team in WWE tonight." That was the end of the show. I was like, wow, well, whatever.
Well, I mean, it
was a good match. It was a very good match.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in WWE philosophy, the champions didn't need to win. So you have them lose. Plus, they're doing New Day and Usos at the pay-per-view. So, that it all makes sense for the New Day to win.
They promised
Not everything they did makes sense. That frickin' Charlotte Flair Tony Storm finish. That was freaking brutal.
Well, before we get to that, we had Naomi and Sonya Deville for the second time, which didn't take place. So Sonya came out, and Shayna and Natty were there, and they went after Naomi, and who should make the save but Xia Li, who they were calling the Protector, and she helped run off the heels. So they promised her debut. So not only did we not get Sonya wrestling, but we actually didn't get a debut of Xia Li, at least in the ring.
We didn't have a match. I mean, she was there.
Yeah, she was there. But and yes, Toni Storm and Charlotte, they went 3 minutes to a disqualification after Charlotte just kept stomping on her in the corner. She has till 5, but she didn't break, and so she was disqualified.
What a lame finish.
3 minutes and a disqualification for kicking too much ass.
Plus, I mean, Toni Storm, there was no other finish but Toni Storm winning, because Charlotte Flair and Toni Storm was supposed to be the pay-per-view match, and it still looks like it is. So why wouldn't you have Toni Storm win?
And I can't help you. And we also had Shinsuke Nakamura and Rick Boogs beating Los Lotharios in a minute. So their 5-week streak of winning is now over.
Yeah.
Kinshasa on Humberto Carrillo. So really, it was not really a noteworthy show or anything like that, but I did think that Brock... Oh, and we had Drew McIntyre and Sheamus, actually, which was 7 minutes. And they're incapable of having a bad match with each other.
They beat the hell out of each other, but that was way too short.
Yeah, they pummeled each other. Claymore for the finish. That was a very good match, so that was good. And yeah, Paul Heyman, by the way, in the opening segment, he basically first he was going to get beat up by Sami Zayn, and Brock Lesnar came out and made the save for Paul Heyman. And then Lesnar starts doing this thing about how he wants to go hunting with Sami Zayn. And Paul is just aghast. He goes, "Who is this? What are you talking about? You used to be..." And he goes in his whole spiel about probably the future reigning, defending. And he does the whole thing for Brock, and Brock runs wild. And so anyway, they are strongly teasing. And then later, Brock told Kayla, she asked some question about Paul Heyman, and he said, "Ask my advocate, Paul Heyman." So they're still playing up that Paul may be Brock's advocate, or he may be sticking with Roman. So it sounds like this is going to go all the way through WrestleMania.
No, that's the idea. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, what's the New Japan update?
I didn't see the show today, but it ended up with, I believe it's Yo and Hiromu Takahashi in the junior finals. So I'm sure they're gonna. That's on Wednesday. So, Hiromu would certainly be the favorite. The winner's going to go against Desperado at the Tokyo Dome, and but yeah, I'll watch all that stuff hopefully tomorrow, and just how that whole thing turned out, and the tag team tournament. There's a bunch of teams still alive. Let me just see who's still. I know Zack Sabre and Taichi, who are the champions, are still alive, but I would doubt that they would win because it could happen, but from a booking standpoint, since the tournament determines who would face them at the Tokyo Dome, it kind of makes no sense for them to win. Going into tomorrow's show. Taichi and Sabre, Naito and Sonata, Goto and Yoshihashi are all 8-2. So, and the two highest placers go to the finals, and then Great Khan and Aaron Hanare and Evil and Yujiro Takahashi are 7-3. So they would still be alive if the right circumstance happens. But as far as Goto and Yoshihashi, Taichi and Sabre, and Naito and Sonata. If any of them win, unless all three win, if one of them wins, they're in the finals. If two of them win, they're in the finals. If all three wins, I don't know how that's all going to sort out. But the matches are. Let me just get to this. It's it's going on right now. This card. Most of the matches have no bearing on the championship. Tanahashi and Yano against Bad Luck Fale and Chase Owens. Both are mathematically eliminated. Togi Makabe and Tomoaki Hanma against Yuji Nagata and Tiger Mask. Basically a battle to see who ends up in, I don't want to say last place, because if Nagata and Tiger Mask win, then, it would be a tie. And I think Taka Michinoku and Minoru Suzuki are going to end up in last place anyway. But whatever. And then Tenzan Kojima against Suzuki and Taka Michinoku. And Taka Michinoku and Suzuki have not won a match in the tournament. They're 0-10. So, that, means nothing. So Goto and Yoshihashi against Taichi and Sabre. So the winner of this match goes to the final. And then Naito and Sonata against Evil and Yujiro. And Evil and Yujiro, if they win, they would be in a tie with Naito. So Goto and Yoshihashi or Taichi and Sabre, one of those teams would win the tournament, or would win the round robin, but the top two go. So Evil and Yujiro still have a shot mathematically. And then Tamatama and Tangaloa against Okada and Hanare. And Okada and Hanare could reach the finals. There is a shot for them as well, depending on what happens. It ends up with tiebreakers, and it depends on how many people are tied, how those tiebreakers are going to go. So, yeah, that's the deal.
All right, everybody. On that note, we're going to wrap it up for today. Yesterday, Dave and Garrett had a show up. You can check that out. And the new Observer came out yesterday as well, Friday morning. So check that out. We've got a bunch of shows coming up this weekend. Dave and I will be back on Monday, Raw and all of the news. So check that out. And that's it, everybody. We'll talk to you again after a while.